Spending time in indecision is one of the biggest capacity sucks that I help a lot of my clients work through. It steals so much mental space when you don't make a decision. It costs you opportunity that can either cost you in the short term or it can stay with you for a lifetime. You're not present with your family because your mind is elsewhere trying to make that decision. And it creates a lot of stress and discomfort in your body that ultimately creates inflammation and can affect you physically. So spending time in indecision is just overall not a great thing. So that's what I want to dive into with you today. Hey, you leader, entrepreneur, business owner, solopreneur, whatever you call yourself. We know you're a visionary business builder, wealth seeker looking to combine a passion for doing good with leading consciously. It's time to shift from a traditional focus of pure wealth accumulation to one that integrates well-being and fulfillment. You're here for a purpose, and it's time to shine your light. So here we go. Welcome back to the Conscious Edge podcast. I'm your host, Alecia St. Germain, founder of The Conscious Edge. One of the things that I used to do is say yes to a lot of things when I probably should have said no. And it created a lot of strain on my capacity. And there's been many times when there was too much on my plate, too much demand coming at me, all things maybe that I wanted, but I remember feeling like I just don't have the capacity for this to even make a decision. And so I figured out that making a decision and then making it right is really a big key component of creating peace in your life. And so now at the Conscious Edge, one of the things that I do is help women get really clear about what they want on their plate, what is worth being there, and then having the courage and figuring out that things are really going to be okay if you start to let some things go, focus on what's most important, prioritize the right things in the right order, and not run around feeling like you're a chicken with your head cut off. And it's one of my absolute pleasures to get to help women create lives that are sustainable and feel good and joyful, and businesses that support the life that they want to live. So if you are new here and this resonates with you, I want to encourage you to hit the follow or subscribe button from wherever you are listening. We put these episodes out every single Tuesday, and we have over 100 episodes now. So there's plenty to go back and binge listen to if you are just joining us. And I'm so glad that you're here. So recently, I was featured on the InvestHer Podcast, episode number 588, with Andresa, Guidelli, and Liz Faircloth. And they are the founders of the Real Estate InvestHer community. And I love these two ladies. They inspire me. They have done so much to help advance the mission for women to create wealth and to make sure that women feel confident in the wealth that they are driving, but also to not just do it in a way that's very hustly and all about having more doors and doing more deals, but doing it in a way that supports life. So it's very aligned to the mission that I serve. I have been involved with their Strive mentorship program since the inception of it, and it's been an absolute pleasure to support their community. And they recently had me on the podcast to talk about indecision and the upcoming InvestHer Con that is happening in June. So I love this conference. It is my favorite one. I don't go to tons and tons of conferences. I'm really cautious about making sure that I'm there for my family and that I have good balance in being there to support my family. But also, I really do love to be with people. I am an extrovert by nature. And I recently had a conversation with a good friend of mine talking about what life was like before kids and what life was like after kids. And what I've realized is that I spend a lot less time out in public. I spend a lot more time behind my computer. And so when I get the opportunity to go to a conference where I can connect with other women who are like-minded and mission driven and doing big things in the world and like to talk about business, I enjoy that so much because that's not necessarily who's right next door living to me. So, and who's necessarily like, when you're a parent and you're an entrepreneur, your life is a little bit different and there's not as many people that maybe that you connect with. So when you get to meet those entrepreneurs in person, it's always so invigorating and so fun. So that is coming up in June, and we're going to talk about that in just a minute or in just a little bit. But one of the other realizations I had was that I'm not really enjoying being on social media much. And I don't know if you feel like this, but I don't know what's real. There's a lot of AI. And while it's fun and interesting, it's also, there's a lot of misinformation. There's a lot of bots out there that spread a lot of hate. And so I'm finding it to be, everybody's starting to sound the same because everybody's using AI generated scripts. And I've even caught myself saying things that I was like, I don't talk like that, but it's because I do use some AI to help generate some things as well, because writing is not my talent. Like I can do it, it's fine, but talking is my talent. That's why I love podcasting. So I think everybody here has a talent, right? Everybody has a talent. Everybody has something they're really good at, and AI has its place. But when I caught myself saying some things that made me sound like an AI script, I became very aware of it. And so I'm noticing it in people's writing on social media. I'm noticing it in their speaking on social media because they're using AI to generate the scripts that they're using. And I understand why, because there's so much formulation that happens in being on social media and trying to get the algorithm to pick it up and trying to get people to do the right thing. So social media to me has not become about connection anymore. It's about just performing and trying to do something so that an algorithm will like show your stuff. And I don't find that really enjoyable anymore. So getting to go to a conference and be with live people is amazing. But it also led to this other idea that I want to tell you about. So my husband and I listen to a podcast together. We don't listen to it at the same time, but there's a podcast we enjoy following. And one of the things that I noticed is many of our conversations that are so interesting and so fascinating and give us something to talk about other than the kids or things that I don't want to talk about. I don't want to gossip about other people. I don't want to like talk about this person or that person, but like just really interesting conversations that help us connect and learn about each other and learn about what each other thinks. And then we apply the things that we learn in the podcast. So it's been so cool. And so I was thinking in my head, like, I need to connect with more people. I was so social before I had kids. I was always out with other people. I was always going to conferences. I was always meeting people. And I was thinking, how can I do this, but more locally? And then it popped in my head in the shower, as most ideas do come to me at that point. And I was like, what if we did podcast club? It's like book club, but podcast club. So what I'm going to do, and I think this is kind of an experiment, but I think it could be really fun, is starting in June on Thursdays at 1 p.m. Eastern time, I am going to host Podcast Club. And Podcast Club is an opportunity for listeners of the Conscious Edge podcast to come together, meet each other, meet with me, and we get to talk about the podcast. Like, what was on the podcast? How does that apply to your life? What landed for you? How can we apply it? How do we take the conversation and go deeper? and actually take you from just consuming information and having conversations, which increases learning and application, and then also be in human connection with each other and get to know people who are outside of maybe your circle and outside of where you hang out, and we get to meet each other. I think it could be really fun, and I hope that you'll come. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a link at consciousedge.com/club. And I'm going to put all the Thursdays that I'm available, which is most, but I have a couple that maybe won't work out because of travel or things like that. But we might have to take a week off here and there. But I'm going to put all the Thursdays that you can sign up for Podcast Club, just so I know you're coming. And think of it like an RSVP, so I know who's coming. And I can send you the link and the reminder. And so you just sign up and you come to Podcast Club and you get to meet other entrepreneurs who are also listening to this podcast, which means you're probably like-minded people. And we get to see like what collaborations and connections come out of being able to have an actual two-way conversation. I love to speak. It is the thing that comes to me easily. I can talk about just about anything for as long as you need me to, but I'm also kind of missing the two-way dialogue. And this was the fastest way. So when we talk about making decisions, this was the fastest way I could think to get in connection with other people and make it really, really easy. So I hope you'll come. Now, let me get into today's episode. So as I was saying, I was recently on an episode of the InvestHer Podcast, and it was such a great conversation around indecision and what is currently going on in the marketplace and some lessons that I learned back in 2000 some lessons I learned later in life, but they started with kind of 2008 and before, around that time when the last time in the real estate market was really great for buying real estate. And I mean, it's been great because of appreciation and low interest rates. But like the last time we had some real significant crises happening where we could take advantage. I don't like that, take advantage, but I like the idea of turning lemons into lemonade. So when we really found a lot of opportunities in the marketplace. So we had this great conversation around preserving wealth as parents are aging and making decisions together as a family, and then making decisions in your life in general. Like, what does that look like? And we talked a little bit about what I'm going to talk about at InvestHer Con in June. So I got permission. I wanted to just go ahead and share that with you here, because I think that I don't need to say it twice when it's already been said. And it'll also introduce you, if you don't know Liz and Andresa, it'll introduce you to that podcast because it's a really great podcast. There are 588 episodes in, and there's such a wealth of knowledge, and they bring so many great people onto their podcast too that have so much information. And they're really big on being ethical, and they vet their people that they want to do business with. And they're very protective of the women in their community and really look out for each other. It's less about making lots and hordes of money and more about like being a community and linking arms with others who are rising together. So I just love them so much, and I wanted you to hear from them as well. So let's dive in.
Alecia, welcome to our podcast one more time. I'm so happy to have you here. We have had so many conversations behind the scene between the three of us. Lately, we were talking about decision making, and we were like, we should record a podcast about all those concepts that are so related to each other. So I'm very happy that you create the possibility to a last-minute podcast with us to talk about this subject.
So happy.
Thank you for that.
Yes, it was an easy decision to make.
All right. So you talked about a story between you and your husband, the late 2000s, when you both were not on the same page when it came down to decision making in regards to your investments. And then you said, I missed that window, and that impacted a lot in our lives, but I'm not missing this window. So I really want to go back to dissect what happened, because many women might be facing similar situations right now in regards to their decisions. So take us back. Let us know what happened and the impact of the decisions that you guys made.
Yeah. So the late 2000s, right? The time when the bubble popped, the adjustable rate mortgages started to adjust and people were losing their jobs. And a lot of people were panicking, but it was also a really great time to be investing. And I see those economic downturns as really great opportunities for investors. And that's how I was always raised. But my husband was raised with that mentality of go to school, get a good job, work for a living, be the provider. And so a lot of investing looked very risky to him. And admittedly, he's not very handy. So the thought of having to deal with repairs on a home or looking at these properties that we find that are great wholesale deals was so scary for him. And it felt like such a risk. And I want to say that we did a lot of things right at that time, but I primarily focused on earned income strategies inside of real estate because that was what his comfort level was. And I did not have the leadership level. I mean, I'm 28 years old. This is like between the time of being 28 and 34. So much opportunity in the market, but I didn't have the leadership skills to come alongside of my husband to show him what he needed to see to get comfortable with investing. And like a lot of investors, I understood how to do individual deals, but I was never educated in how to run a business. So when cash was flush, it was easy. And when it wasn't, it was panicky. And getting to the point where understanding how to look at the financials in your business and being able to now see how I can use budget to drive a plan that I have in place. I have a very different leadership level where I could show my husband the numbers. I could show him why all those deals together, strung together, would make financial sense. But I didn't have that at the time. So in a very realistic way, like the capacity was limited on what the wealth that we could create because of that business acumen and my leadership.
I want to dive into what the business acumen looks like, though. What do you have now that you're not going to miss this, where we are in the economic downturn, and make opportunities out of nothing now? What is in your business acumen now than you had when you were 28?
Yeah. So, well, for one is looking at my financials regularly, understanding inflows and outflows of money and what individual deals make, like what do individual deals strung together mean for running a business, for being able to pay salary, for being able to hire employees. And not saying I can't do that because my business can't afford it, but really planning for what needs to happen so that your business can afford it, so that you can grow in a way that is sustainable. Because a lot of times our answer to business when we're financially crunched is to take it all on ourselves. And that's borrowing from our bodies, and that's borrowing from our wellness, and that's not sustainable either. So I would say a lot of it is in the financial side and my comfort with money and debt and my relationship with debt. It is focusing outward and really looking at what are trends. I listen to a lot of really smarter people than myself. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I follow a lot of people who have a lot of different perspectives in the market. And I don't take any one thing as the way. I also trust myself, which is something I didn't have then. Like my confidence level wasn't there. So I can look at something and go, okay, I think this is true. And I can cherry pick that piece out. And then if I marry that over here with what someone else said, I can see very clearly now like what someone's agenda is, so to say. And when I can see that agenda, I can take the information, verify it, lots of vetting, and not just trusting everything at face value, but also putting a lot of trust in my ability to interpret things.
I love that. It's very practical, right? And the vetting, a lot of people say that you make money when you buy the property, right? Totally agree with the vetting process. A lot of people are also losing a lot, buying right, but losing a lot because they are not managing the cash flow properly. You said something very profound. Then I'm like, whoa, what's going on? You said that this could be the last time for our generation that we will have an opportunity to build real wealth. So tell me, what are you seeing in the market right now?
So history gives us a lot of clues, right? And so anybody who would not deny that we're in volatile times. And in my experience and in historical experience, it is when we are the most unstable that the cream rises to the top. The people who are really savvy, who are into problem solving, this is when we're going to be able to see opportunity where other people are afraid. And I think there's some statistics out there. 70% of the wealth in the United States is owned by people over the age of 55. And I think half of that, 50% of the wealth in the United States is in people who are in the baby boomer generation. So that wealth has to transfer somewhere. And part of what happened in 2008 is the Gen X population who were entering the market to buy their first homes were so much smaller than the baby boomers. So we had like a perfect storm of oversupply. The generation behind us, the millennials, they're as big as the baby boomers. So I think that's part of why we're seeing things not go exactly as they have in the past when we have a market cycle, is because we do have a housing shortage. But what I'm looking at is, okay, a lot of the baby boomers having all of that wealth, that goes into healthcare. And so the question that I'm asking myself is, how do we preserve, like just within my family, how do we make sure that we're preserving the wealth of parents to actually come to the younger generations so that it's not eaten up into corporations that are taking care of like nursing and medical bills and things like that? Like, how do we actually preserve that wealth? And that's not necessarily the same strategy I think that everybody's looking at, but there was a time when we used to take care of our parents, and parents came and lived in the home, and we were more of a stronger family unit amongst generations. And we don't have as much of that happening now. So that really was a big internal shift as my parents are aging and my husband's parents are aging. How do we be a better family unit to take care of? Because I think that's one of the things that preserves generational wealth, is that connection between family. And there's a lot of baggage that sometimes comes to family, and that's where like our personal work comes into play. So looking at like what happens as this generation ages out, and the millennial generation, the generation right behind us, because I think you're both Gen Xers too, aren't you?
You, millennial.
I am.
Oh,
I'm the elder here. I'm the elder.
Okay. But Andresa, you're like an elder millennial, right? Like
I'm right there. You really are right there. I can be called a millennial too.
This is like, you are like literally 80% right there. Yeah.
But what's happening is there's like school loans that are so like the price of, I'm so grateful I went to college when I did, because just 10 years behind me, school loans and the kind of debt that the younger generation had to take on to do the American dream of going to college has shifted so much. So the housing prices have not come down. And even though interest rates, we got a little used to the 2 to 3%, at 6%, it's moderate, but compared to what housing prices are, like it's very out of alignment. So I'm looking at what part do I play in all of that?
So there's obviously a lot of research that's come out with the great wealth transfer, right? $100 trillion coming into the hands, obviously the baby boomers shifting wealth to us and millennials. There's 2 points though that are made, and I want to just circle back on what you said about preserving wealth and then the conversations you're having with parents. There's 2 inheritances, right? There's a spouse that potentially passing away, why women are inheriting a lot of wealth. They're making their own money. There's another inheritance is their parents, right? Aging parents passing on the wealth to them directly, not just a spouse that's passing away. And there is a huge point of contention of having conversations and having the dialogue now before that happens. And there's a lot coming up that I've seen in different articles saying, okay, how do you approach those conversations? The children of the baby boomers, right? In terms of preserving that wealth. And not just their direction, but what's important to them and how do they really maximize the next shift that's going to happen in wealth. So Alecia, what are the types of decisions that you're making alongside, right, your parents, your husband's parents to preserve wealth?
So, yeah, and this can be touchy inside of families, right?
Absolutely. That's why I'm curious.
Yeah. So we've got kind of 2 schools of thought, right? I was raised by entrepreneurs on my side. So that conversation is very easy to have. And those decisions are making sure that things are in order, that all of our paperwork is in place, that we're consulting with people who are experts and smarter than us, but also those that are not necessarily just conventional, but really looking at how do we do things like avoid probate, and how do we make sure that when there's a transfer that we're not taxed in the same way that someone who was unprepared maybe ends up paying a much like painful tax. There are some states where you work your whole life, you pay taxes on the money, and then when your family gets the money, they get to pay tax on it again too. So being really smart about those types of things. And so those conversations are very easy there. On the flip side, my husband's family have a more traditional, conventional sort of approach. And you're also dealing with personalities that want to do the very best. I think the most important thing is to realize that people, like, you're on the same side. Like, hopefully, I hope, like, families are on the same side. And so it's not about who's right and what's the right way. It's about how do we get to the same outcome and empower, versus I think sometimes with older generations, as I grow older, and it's like, you do feel a little bit out of control of what is happening to your body, to what is happening in life. And so maintaining a sense of respect and control is super important, and being autonomous. So just being very thoughtful in the way that we do that. And so there are some things that we can't control. And there are things that a parent is going to make a decision that we don't agree with. And that also gets to be okay. And really thinking about, okay, given what they're choosing to do, what will we choose to do? So there are things you can control and there are things you can't. And we make the best decisions we can with what's involved.
Yeah. I think the bottom line is to make a decision to talk about it right now versus, oh, we'll talk about it when the time is right. The time was right yesterday, right? The next time right is today. I think you mentioned about people's relationship with money and how that impacts how people see the world, how they spend the money, how they invest the money, how they see the relationship between cost and value. And I think nowadays it is more challenging to find a deal that works and not versus, oh, we're going to pray that all the numbers work and then we can get a deal, a profit at the end. We talked about different ways that we can set ourselves up for success versus, oh, I'm using the same strategies to find deals, fund deals. My decision making when evaluating a deal hasn't changed. And then I'm getting frustrated with the market, with how things are. So in one of our million Voxers, you were saying that you would encourage people to really take a step back and go back to the old ways of finding deals through relationships and putting themselves in spaces where they can build relationships with different people and really understand that forcing a decision is just not the right way. You're making a decision based on your anxiety or pressure to buy versus making a decision based on your goals and in alignment. So I want to touch a little bit more into that, the money relationship. What have you seen there that people that are listening can say, do I have a toxic relationship with money or
that's
not?
deep. That's deep.
How would I know that? And what would you say?
I wouldn't per se the relationship with money is the thing that's toxic. The money is the amplifier. Throw money on anything and it's going to make it more of what something already is. If you're super generous, throw some money on it, you are going to be more generous. If you have anxiety about not having enough, throw money on it and you're going to be fearful of losing it all at any moment. So it is only amplifying whatever your fears or whatever it is already there. So that would be my one thing I'd say about money specifically is it's a tool. It amplifies things. It is in itself, the relationship is not the toxicity.
So let's say I'm listening, right? I'm listening. Okay, it's a tool. I agree to that. But I lost everything or I never had it in order to lose it. So I'm afraid that if I have it, if I quote unquote grow more than a few doors, if I scale my portfolio, if I build a team, oh my gosh, how am I going to pay them? And all the above. I want to connect the relationship with money, the tool, with people getting stuck in growing their portfolio and ultimately achieving financial freedom through real estate as a tool itself. Is that like an internal sabotage going on?
100%. I mean, and it's different for a lot of people, but for a lot of the women that follow this podcast and are connected to you, there are a lot of high functioning women. It's all on me. I handle everything. I carry the mental load. If it doesn't get done by someone else, I will do it myself. And the idea of putting more on your plate, it is going to it's like you're going to break. Well, this is what I hear all the time. I don't have the capacity for more. And what's really happening is there's some fundamental beliefs that you may or may not be aware of that it is unsafe or that you may be growing a team that you're not going to find the right individuals, that no one can do it as well as you. And so it's taking those steps because if you see it around you, there are other people who are growing huge real estate portfolios, who are creating freedom lifestyles, who have what you want. If they can do it, you can do it. You're not that different. The difference is how they manage their team, how they treat other people. Are they afraid of looking good or making a bad decision? That this whole overthinking before I can move, I've got to get it right. When a lot of times the information is not going to present itself until you take the next step. So trying to look really good, get it all together behind the scenes before you just emerge with it all together. That's not a real thing.
When we think about decision-making in that context, right? And then there's decisions that have to be made to move forward or to not move forward, right? To either stay in the sense of a little bit of fear or a little bit of apprehension or to take advantage of what people are seeing or opportunities right now, today's market. What are the initial decisions that you need to make, that women need to make to say, okay, let me make this, because we always talk about micro decisions, right? I can decide to become financially free, that huge decision. Yeah. More importantly, that's not what we're talking about, right? What's my next decision to make so that...
let me ask you a question. Do you guys think that people really decide to be financially free? Or is that they like the idea?
They dream of it. I think
you have both. I think you have both.
Decide. Who wouldn't decide that though? Right? I think that people like the idea of being a real estate investor. They like the idea of being financially free. They like the idea of having a lifestyle that they dream of. They like the idea, but that is to me, is a different decision that needs to make. I am deciding to become financially free. Therefore, I'm going to put effort into it. What I see is a lot of people liking the idea, but actually not committing to it at all.
Well, not to get too deep, but we'll go there because that's where we are right now. I think there's people within our community, right, that not just like the idea, but believe the idea is possible. Then you have people in society that may like the idea, but don't see it as possible for them, right? So then you kind of, and Alecia, you're the mindset coach, but like, then there's like those two lanes of like, I believe this and I see it possible. I haven't made the decision on really how to do it. Or you have people who are in all of our circles that aren't in our circle of real estate investing, entrepreneurship. Honestly, I don't think they see it as even a possibility, right? So maybe you're dealing with different, I don't know, Alecia, that's yours to answer here.
No, for sure. So it depends on what you're exposed to, and it depends on what you heard growing up. Like, I can see people not choosing to be somebody. You said, like, why would someone not choose that? Because if you believe that people who have a lot of money are selfish or evil or do bad things, like, then you wouldn't want that. So you don't want to be like that. You like the idea of having the money, but to be that person is so counter to who you are as a person that having a lot of money would feel inauthentic based on what you know. And you'll find evidence of that if that's what you focus on. But if I decide, you know what, I am going to actually look at all the people that I admire that I think are doing really great things in the world, that are making a difference, and I'm going to focus on what that journey looks like, then that's going to open up a lot of different possibilities. So it's really wherever you will find evidence of whatever you decide. We're talking about decision. So if I decide I'm going to work towards financial freedom, I'm going to do it in an authentic way. I'm going to do it with integrity. I'm going to speak my truth and do my very best to do no harm along the way. Then when I make that decision, that's the evidence that I'm going to go find.
Oh, let me ask you a question. Let's say I didn't grow up in the best financial possibilities. My parents didn't teach me anything. So the belief is not there, right? And I don't know how to shift from not believing to believing it. Let's put it out there. I don't know how to do that. But I am coming across now different ideas about investing in real estate, becoming financially free. Nobody in my generation bought a house or went to school. I'm painting the picture of that person. Do you think that, okay, I'm going to make the decision first? Will the belief come after? Because then you're saying that once I make a decision, I'm going to start finding evidence about that. And those evidence are going to help me to start believing and more. Is that the path?
I think it's going to be a lot easier path. Here's the thing, the brain will filter. We get so much information in a day, the brain filters it out. It's like when you decide to buy a certain kind of car, you buy that car, and then all of a sudden you see that car everywhere, but you never saw it before you made that decision. Yeah. So I hear you in like, I didn't know that if you don't know something exists, how can you put yourself towards that? So there are maybe like, you know that I also believe in a bit of the spiritual side. So if you have things that are like little nuggets that are put in your place and you're like, oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's an interesting nugget. And you start to follow that thread, I think that it can grow slowly over time, but you can also have those nuggets and ignore them.
So it's the awareness piece.
Yeah.
So I'd reflect that question back to you, Andresa, like you didn't have the easiest of upbringing, but you still made it here.
Yeah.
And my experience of you is you're relentless.
Yeah.
When you want something. So you do make a decision.
Relentless. Wow. I've never heard Andresa called that.
I am. I am.
Funny.
I make it. But looking back, it was not that, oh, I made the decision to come to the United States to go for my master's degree, and I have all lined up to pay the $75,000 tuition. It didn't happen like that. I made one step and then the other, kind of like when you're driving and it's cloudy. So the more that you drive, then you can see the road ahead. Mm-hmm. But if I don't drive, I won't see what is ahead of me whatsoever. And I think for the women that we are serving inside the Real Estate InvestHer, they are relentless. They are driven. They are hyper function as well. And they are in a stage right now that, quote unquote, building a team seems out of capacity because they believe that they need to manage a team versus leading a team. And that's going to take a lot of time. Or partner up with other people doesn't feel safe because they don't believe that other people will carry shit when things don't go right like they would. So they're carrying everything themselves. And to me, it's sad because I want them to see that there are other women like them out there. And there are possibilities that we can together really leverage the experience that we had. So other women don't need to make the same mistakes that I did, that you did. That's why this podcast exists. So we can start showing to people that didn't see it through their parents, their generation, but they start seeing that there are possibilities out there. So they can take one step. We're not asking people to, okay, present your financial freedom plan right away. We're asking them, be curious about it. Start talking about it. Take one step further. Get connected with other women, attend our webinars, attend our conferences, start seeing more. And I think that's how momentum starts. And that's when the decision about money comes in, right? Because sometimes I remember not that long time ago, less than 10 years ago, I was attending a conference here in Philadelphia and the ticket price was $200. I do remember looking at that and I think, $200? That's insane. Insane. To me at that time, my relationship with money was more of a cost versus what is the value that I'm going to get by being in that room. I want to touch base a little bit about that with you, Alecia, because we are seeing a lot of free webinars, $47 events, and no shame to people's strategy. But you said something about one time that your mentor said to you about people being the product. I don't remember what.
It came into my awareness from the movie The Social Dilemma, which totally freaky movie if you've never watched it, or a documentary. But this is a concept that's been around since the 1970s when television became so captivating. And it's, if you're not paying for it, you are the product. And so the idea is the viewership, the attendance, the captive audience. When you are coming for free, you are there as the captive audience that is going to have an offer made of some sort or in some way. Like when you think about social media and that, the advertisers, that's where social media is making their money, is from advertisers and by having a captive audience that stays on. So when we talk about even conferences, and look, everything has a place and a value. I think what I really want people to hear and understand is that why are you choosing to spend time on whatever it is you're choosing to spend time on? If you are going to a free or low cost event with the intention to find the right mentor for you, and there's going to be a lot of speakers on stage, that is a great way to sample to find like that right mentor for you because you're just getting started, a lot of the free things are geared towards people who are new. So I do sometimes hear, like even when I go to some of the lower cost events, people will complain, oh, everybody here is new. And it's like, well, yeah, or all of this was basic knowledge. And it's like, well, that's because it's who it's geared for. Like, don't be upset. Like, go with that intention, maybe to find the other people like you that are more savvy, but know that you're searching for a needle in a haystack. If you're paying more for an event, a lot of times there's a lot less sales pitches because they have to pay for the event in some way. So if it's a lot higher quality content, more curated, a lot more like InvestHer Con, you feed us really well, you pay attention to like more making sure there's networking opportunities and there's high educational content that is new information, cutting edge, whatever is right for what's happening currently in the market. That's a more curated event. And so one of the things that like blew my mind was one of the very first InvestHer Cons. I think it was Kim Kiyosaki asked, or somebody asked, how many people in the room had a net worth more than $1 million?
Yeah, it was Kim.
Like half the room raised their hands. And I was like, wow, this is so different than the kinds of events I had been to in the past because they were those low cost events designed to sell you stuff.
Right. Last year, we asked people, it was 1.95 billion in assets
in the room. What I would love is instead of people complaining about the event that they came to, is that they start seeing that there are events, there are education, there are things you go to that truly have a connection, networking type thing. And those are going to be a bigger investment than something that is free. And if you're there, then know that it's a marketing tactic versus an event. And you have to be savvy enough to see the difference between those things.
Yeah, absolutely. So Alecia, we're so excited to have you back at InvestHer Con, of course. And you're going to be teaching the Now Advantage, which is a framework, right, that transforms hesitation into bold decisions, which is what we've been talking about today. Why is it so critical in today's market?
So here's the thing about number one, we have such a great opportunity that's coming up. I'm not looking at all of the uncertainty in the market and saying that things are bad. I'm saying I'm going to find a way through and we always land on our feet. You have to believe that. But acting now and being in the present moment and working towards this life that you want and being intentional in everything that you do, it's not just important about what's currently happening in the market. This time that we are on earth is a blip. And the time that we have with the people that we love is a blip. And if you're spending time with indecision, it is taking up mental load and taking you away from truly the things that matter most in the world, the precious connections that you have, the experiences, the way that you get to live and experience all that this planet has to offer is what this is all about. And if it is spent in worry and concern and stress, that is not a life well lived. So I don't think it's just important for the current market and to be able to take advantage of it. And I'm so passionate about that because I don't regret my husband and my decisions through 2008. It was what we created with the capacity we had, and we did a ton of things right. And we get to reap the benefit of that now. And all of that happened before I had kids. And if more women know what I know now before they had kids, it would have made my child rearing days so much easier. I think same thing for you, Liz. You and I have very similar aged kids. It would have made the journey easier. And so I am very passionate about handing back this wisdom as a mother and a businesswoman to younger generations and making life a little bit easier.
I love that. And
Same.
that's exactly what you can expect from every single speaker at InvestHer Con. You're not going to get anything. You can Google it. You're going to get extremely high interactive sessions where we have women who walk the walk. There's going to be sharing practical frameworks that you can apply. And you're going to start doing the work inside the session, not taking notes and leaving without a clear plan. And that is our commitment to you, that you leave with a clear decision about what your next step is. And most important, we are committed that you leave with a support system you can rely on beyond the event. So if you're looking for a curated group of driven women, real estate investors, I will see you in Scottsdale, Arizona, June 14th to 16th. I'll link the link over here on the show notes. I'll see you there. Alecia, always a pleasure speaking with you. I always want our conversations to be recorded because we go in different places and we start connecting and our experiences, our points of view. The beautiful thing that has happened many times is that we bring different points of view that might or might not be in alignment, but I learned from you that different points of view are true and valid and can coexist. So everything is great. Always a pleasure to have you. And I am blessed to have you in my life. So thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, same, Alecia. Can't wait to see you in June.
It's going to be fun.
All right.
Thanks for listening to the Conscious Edge podcast. Make sure you subscribe and take a moment to be kind and share this episode with someone you care about. Leave a review to help us bring more compassionate leaders building businesses and creating wealth to the table. And for show notes, head over to consciousedge.com/podcast. This podcast and the linked materials are presented solely for general information, educational, and entertainment purposes and should not be taken as personal or medical advice or any kind of mental health treatment. Please consult a medical or mental health professional if you feel you need such services. Please be advised that all investing and entrepreneurial endeavors involve risk, and the use of the education and information on this podcast and linked materials is at the user's own risk.
This podcast is part of the Sound Advice FM network. Sound Advice FM, women's voices amplified.